Commissioner, Pebble Park probably isn't on the radar for a lot of people, but this is a neighborhood park that I guarantee you the people that live in this area utilize this park. Tell me a little bit about this place.
Absolutely. It's kind of in a little island of the county, and it is heavily used. You can drive by here any day, especially Saturdays and evenings. It's heavily used by the neighborhood. And one thing, we did a survey about parks on our website, and one of the things that we found was that people like utilizing the parks, but a lot of times when their children are playing here, there aren't restrooms in some of our parks. So we're going to be adding restrooms, excitedly, to this park, so people won't have to run home to take their children to the bathroom.
It's exciting to make some additions here, and you also said here along the commercial corridor you're going to make some improvements, and it's also a little bit dynamic because we have a flood control or detention basin here, so the water district is involved.
Yes, this is ownership by the water district and also the water reclamation district, and the landscaping has never been put in next to Pebble Road. County requires landscaping when developers come in, walls and landscaping, and it's just a bare portion, having the wash just go right up next to the road. So we had some residents concerned about that, so we looked into it and found some funding, and so we'll be putting in landscaping with Palo Verde trees that use very little water and very little maintenance, but yet will really beautify the area.
And Commissioner, just while we're talking about the area, I know you have great cooperation with your counterparts here in the city of Henderson. I know you had a recent town hall meeting with Mayor Hafen and Councilman Bateman. And people in this area, whether they live in the city, or pardon me, in the county or the city of Henderson, in some instances they don't care. I guarantee you there's plenty of Henderson residents that use a park like this, and county residents vice versa, right?
No question about it. County residents absolutely use Henderson parks. Henderson citizens use nearby county parks. Sunset Park is a good example too. As a regional park, it draws people from all over the county and the city of Henderson. So it's good cooperation. We're happy to have everyone use the parks, and we want them to be used. And that's, I think, the reason that whenever we have some money that we can put into parks, we get that. It's been very scarce in the last few years. So when we have that opportunity, we want to put that into augmenting our parks.
Tell me a little bit about some of your other park inventory. I know that Whitney and Paradise Vista Park, you're making some improvements and some additions to those neighborhood parks.
Yes, part of the survey that we had for Whitney Park was people in need of shade. They said we can't use the park as often as we'd like to because there's no shade. So there'll be some shade structures put in there, and also some chess tables. That was a suggestion by a resident. We thought it was a great suggestion, not costing much more than just a normal table. So it'll be a little chess table that people play on as they use the tables.
So those neighborhood surveys, obviously, they're not falling on deaf ears. You and our Parks and Recreation Department plan accordingly with what your residents are saying.
Trying to incorporate those suggestions into the park augmentations.
A park that we've heard a lot about, I think even since your predecessor was involved, it's been named already after a couple of people we might know here in Las Vegas, Siegfried and Roy Park, over near the airport. That's had a long history, that piece of land. Bring us up to date on that one, Commissioner.
Yes, and I heard about that even before my election. People were very concerned. We were promised a park when the airport was planning Terminal 3, and they had to take out some homes along Russell and promised the residents that were then going to be facing the airport configuration, promised a buffer and to have a park. Well, then when the economy had its problems, the money for that park vanished, and so that promise was made. So we've looked really hard and looked under every rock and found some money to put that park in it to fulfill that promise.
Where did you find that money from, and tell us how big, what amenities the folks can see at Siegfried and Roy?
The airport had some money in their capital fund that they're putting toward the park, and then the county has had a settlement, a litigation settlement, and so some of that money we're putting in from the county side. And so we'll be hopefully putting in full 20 acres of the park. It's a 20-acre piece. At first we were thinking of just putting half of that in and phasing it, but it looks like we might be able to do the full 20-acre park.
And a time frame, when do you expect construction to be
commenced?
It's
in design now. Construction could commence within the next 6 months or so, and we could see the park going up in the next year and a half.
Commissioner, surveys aren't the only way they can contact you or your staff. I know you have a neighborhood meeting and a cleanup coming up later this month. Tell me about these, I believe, in the lovely Whitney community.
Yes, at the end of February 26th, we're doing a neighborhood meeting pretty much right in the middle of District G. Sunset Park maybe being the center of that. And we'll be reaching out to residents to talk about the Siegfried Roy Park and this Pebble improvement, and also addressing concerns that they have. I always really enjoy the neighborhood meetings because I really do feel I get a lot of great input. And people are asking questions of Metro and water reclamation, water questions, and so we have people there that can address those, but then I also get some very good input on issues that I'm voting on as a commissioner, so I really enjoy those input meetings. And then Whitney cleanup, this will be our 4th cleanup in that area. We're planning right now to do that March 1st and 2nd, and we'll be doing graffiti abatement and neighborhood cleanup, and it's been very successful in the past. We've had cleaned up some homeless encampments, and the police and firefighters join us, and different groups, community activist groups that enjoy coming in and helping out. It's always a very fun, exciting for the neighborhood because we can really see results from it.
Well, and that's something that I know in some of the more mature areas of District G, the literal grassroots effort is what's needed for cleanups and town halls and things like this, right, Commissioner?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most important things we can do to reach out right on, as you say, the grassroots level. I think neighborhood identity is so very important. When I served on the school board, we looked at what schools had higher achievement, and it's not always where you think. Sometimes it's in an area you wouldn't expect. We kind of looked at it not very scientifically, but just I have a personal theory that it's in an area where people relate to where they live. They identify with their neighborhood and they have pride in it. And it goes all the way through to the children, up to the elderly population. We take care of our community, we take care of our children.
Commissioner, I know you participated recently in the annual homeless census, and speaking of people where you don't expect them, I think most everyone thinks of the homeless people in downtown Las Vegas. I know you and your liaison Blanca were along Boulder Highway and in some of the older areas of Henderson. I had no idea that homeless folks resided in that area. Did you?
Yes, and I know from when I was on the school board that we had a large number of homeless teenagers. And Henderson, some of the older parts of Henderson are some of the key spots where they are found. So we participated in that count. We only did driving. We in the Henderson area, that was the designated way to do the count. So we couldn't see in a lot of the areas where we surmised that homeless were living. We tried shining the car lights out in some of the areas. In our count in 5 hours, we found one, and a coyote.
That is quite an experience. So, as you say, you go out in the middle of 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and people literally fan out into the areas of homeless and do a literal count of this.
Yes, and it's done, excuse me, for the purpose of grants from the federal government, and also to do programming within our area to know where there should be reach outs. And to know exactly where folks are.
How would you characterize this? How big of a problem? How much of an issue is this, in your opinion, Commissioner?
I think it's a huge issue. We need to take care of our homeless, and we need to find out why they're homeless in order to know how to help them. I know I did participate a couple of years ago in a survey on why people were homeless, actually asking them one-on-one, and a lot of times it is drugs, alcohol addiction, issues like that, sometimes mental health issues, but not always. And and veterans, there are a lot of veterans out there, so finding out the reasons and where they are very important to be able to help them.
And finally, while we're just continuing our talk about Whitney, I know you're doing a monthly movie in the park for the folks at Whitney. Tell us about that.
Yes, we did in the fall. We did 3 movie nights that were very successful, and we're going to start again probably in April and do another 3. But they were hugely successful. As people found out about them more and more, we had more with each movie night. It was just a free movie night to come and watch on a big huge screen out under the stars and have a little hot chocolate, and or if it's hot, having some cool drink.